The City of Westland has many departments, boards, and commissions. All of these need to work in tandem with the common goal of making Westland both a destination for visitors as well as a great place to live, work, and play. Hello, I'm Westland Mayor William Wild. I'm joined today by Westland City Council President Jim Hart, and we're pleased to present this series of strategic planning workshops that have been held recently. The programs are facilitated by Scott Patton from Plant Moran, and they're designed and run in such a way as to get everyone involved to start thinking strategically and long-term. By holding workshops such as these, we're able to bring employees, consultants, boards and commission members, and the public at large together to brainstorm ideas to help Westland move forward and be a regional leader in the areas of finance, economic development, and infrastructure.
That's right, Mayor. Through these workshops, we have been able to give first a little history of the subject matter and present an overview of what the role individual departments play in the big picture of our community. Then the director and a consultant outline some of the plans for the future before opening it up for public input. Each of these sessions are the result of countless hours of studying, meetings, phone calls, presentations, and preparation. For those who are not able to participate in or view the workshop live, we're presenting them in this format, so our entire community can have the opportunity to see the short and long-term vision and get excited about all the great things happening here in Westland.
That's exactly right, Council President Hart. There are a lot of great things coming. In today's infrastructure workshop, we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to take a look at the city's roads. We're going to take a look at the water and sewer infrastructure. We're going to take a look at our facilities, and we're going to take a deep dive into the equipment that is being used by the Department of Public Works, the Police Department, and the Fire Department.
Really exciting, Mayor. So now let's hand it off to Scott Patton from Plant Moran, who facilitated this workshop session.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see, Council President Hart is not here today. He's actually off on a much-needed vacation down in Florida, where I would say it's much warmer, but it's pretty warm here today. So we're going to get started here in just a second. I hope everyone had a chance to review the information that was emailed on Friday. If you didn't, we're obviously going to go over slide by slide. But for now, we're going to have Scott Patton from Plant Moran, who's our facilitator, take over and run us through the slides. Scott?
All right, great. Thank you so much. Should be quite a bit of information that you'll have this evening. It is one of the workshops that we usually have had or traditionally have had on Friday morning, or I'm sorry, Saturday mornings as part of strategic planning. This one is dealing specifically with infrastructure and some capital items too that are non-infrastructure related. But the agenda that we'll go through kind of covers things in a few different sections there. So Jessica, if you want to go to the agenda, we're going to kick things off with a discussion of water, sewer, roads, and drainage. Thanks. And drainage. And the presenters for that will be OHM advisors as well as Ramsey. We'll get through that in about an hour, and that'll include, time for council questions. We'll then take a break and get back together where a lot of the discussion will be about the public service fleet and then the police and fire fleet as well, and equipment in both of those categories as well. We'll pause for a moment there for council questions and see if you have some feedback that you'd like to make for that. And then we will conclude with the discussion of facilities and some great tools that they're using to help with keeping things pretty good. You will notice there will be just a couple of slight modifications from what was sent out on Friday. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, and presenters will probably just highlight those as they go through. The last logistic, I will be compiling an executive summary for each of the sessions that we've had so far and distribute that to you within the next week or two. So that's what we have planned for today, and we'll turn it over to Mayor Wild for some comments before we get going.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you all for being with us tonight, and we appreciate your willingness to move these workshops from Saturday to a weeknight. So I'll keep my comments short because we have a lot of material to cover tonight. But for those residents that are tuning in for the first time, this has been one of a series of strategic planning workshops that we've done with the city council. And the first one was in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The second was look at the city's finances. And then our most recent one was a look at economic development throughout the city. So tonight our focus is going to be on infrastructure. And as Scott said, infrastructure means a lot of different things. And we're going to take a kind of a current snapshot, a short and long-term look at water and sewer, some of the equipment that we use in the DPS and with our police and fire vehicles. And then we're going to close out with a good look at the city's facilities. And infrastructure is something that's important to us. And I think that we all have to really educate ourselves about it because, when we look at the city's long term, the things that keep me up at night for risk for the cities, they were our unfunded pensions and our OPEB numbers, and we've worked together to make a lot of headway on that. But when you take a look at the city's unfunded, liability as far as infrastructure, that's one of the things that keeps all of us up at night. So as we work out our budgets and our priorities, we need to also, take a look at infrastructure. So with that, hope you enjoyed tonight's session. It's going to be pretty educational. We have a lot of great speakers here tonight, and I'll kick it back to Scott so we can get started. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So the first section here again is going to deal with water, sewer, roads, and drainage, as well as an infrastructure overview. Those two things will be sort of presented together. And in addition to Ramsey, who you all know as the city's public services director, hope I got that right, Ramsey. But we'll have OHM advisors also giving a presentation, and specifically Jessica Caters, who is a principal at OHM, who has over 20 years of experience in undertaking infrastructure assessment, designing capital improvement projects, and advising local communities. She's assisted with multiple communities with accessing grants and financing in order to implement those plans, including the city of Westland in your recent partnerings with MDOT and SEMCOG to fund transportation initiatives for both roadways and shared use facilities as well. So Jessica, go ahead and kick things off for us, please. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you, Council, for having us here tonight. And hopefully we can dive into your infrastructure systems and give you a good idea of the assessment of your systems and give you an idea of how you rate versus the statewide systems in your regional communities. First, I wanted to just state the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, recently did a report card in 2018. And they did an assessment of all community infrastructure throughout the state. It included the wastewater facilities, your sanitary facilities, which rated a C throughout the state. Your drinking waters throughout the state were at a level of D. The roads and the stormwater systems throughout the state were a D-. And the bridges came in a little bit better at a C-. The overall grade point average that the state infrastructure was given was a D+. And we've known that the infrastructure issues have been unfunded for a while or lacked the amount of funding to keep them at a current a level of service that has been acceptable. So this first slide here is just to give you a general idea of a lot of communities are feeling the pressure of their infrastructure, their aging infrastructure, and how to maintain and operate that infrastructure. The one piece of infrastructure that most people see is your roads. And in Southeast Michigan, SEMCOG does an overall road condition rating. So they've taken all of their communities and their counties and assessed that there are 21% of the roads are in good condition, 35% are fair, and then the rest, 44%, are in poor condition. And the sanitary and sewer, SEMCOG has also taken a look at those as well. Those systems were installed in the 50s, 60s. They're nearing their lifespan, and without rehabilitation or replacement, they will continue to fail us or have breaks and issues with delivering services to our customers. It's been budgeted, or it's been estimated rather, that Michigan needs an additional $4 billion a year to maintain the existing infrastructure. And this is all from the 2018 report card. We all know that there has not been a major infrastructure infusement of money over the past 2 years. So we are still at this current level of funding need, and there is not currently a funding mechanism to fulfill this need. One thing that SEMCOG has done is taken a look and surveyed the residents and customers in the region, and they have stated that they are willing to pay a little bit extra in order to upgrade their aging infrastructure, to have a more reliable system, and to replace their aging sanitary sewer systems, to increase the quality of the water that is delivered to their homes and businesses, and prevent pollution in the lakes and streams and the recreation areas that we enjoy here in Southeast Michigan. So it does seem that the customers and the citizens of this area certainly are understanding that there needs to be an additional investment in our infrastructures. One of the infrastructure networks that was part of the campaign for governor the last go around was the Rebuilding Michigan Roads. And we know that there is an $8 million in bonds for state infrastructure. And this is all great, and it will be a great investment in the MDOT network of roads. The 5-year transportation plan includes 46 projects of all different magnitudes. And the black here, these are the projects that are surrounding your area. So there are quite a few of the highways and freeways in this area that are going to get touched. However, none of this money is going to go to county or local roads. So there's still a need at the local level in order to invest in your road systems. When we look at an infrastructure network, it's a layered system, and we want to take a look at it from the bottom layer up. The first layer that we want to look at is our sanitary sewer system. And then we'll take a look at water, and then Ramsey is going to take a look at the roads and drainage, or give you a summary of your roads and drainage. Your sanitary sewer network, these are a couple pictures from some of the assessments that have been recently done. So it's an unseen network that you never talk about or actually have a whole lot of conversation unless it fails or it doesn't do its job. And unfortunately, this type of distress, it accumulates until we get to a point where we need to do rehabilitation or replacement of the system in order to restore the customer service. Our network of sewer within Westland, we have 293 miles of sanitary sewer. So it basically mimics the number of road miles a little bit more than what you have in roads. And you have over 7,000 sanitary sewer manholes. So it's a very extensive network of sewage collection system. Some of the sewer pipes are owned by Wayne County, but a good majority of this mileage is all owned by the city of Westland, owned and maintained. Of all of this, about 50% of these sanitary sewers are within the rear yards. And those rear yard sanitary sewer systems are where we find a lot of our failures to occur because we have root intrusion or a collapse of a sewer. We have those sanitary sewer systems are of a certain age, a certain material type, and they happen to be in a location where they need a rehabilitation in order to continue to function. So currently, the DPW has partnered with contractors over the last few years to line this system. And we've gotten 5% of the system lined. An additional 95% of this, the 50% of the rear yard system is still in need of rehabilitation. when I speak of lining, the rehabilitation methodology that we use for sanitary sewers is cured in place pipe, CIPP liner. This gives us another 50 years of lifetime of usage out of this utility. If you can see here in this picture, this is of a rear yard sanitary sewer. So you see that there's cracking in the sewer and then the root intrusion. And all of this combined adds up to an area that can fail and would possibly cause backups or a collapse in a rear yard. So the sewer liner gives us, like I said, that additional 50 years of lifetime. It provides us a structural integrity, and this is called trenchless technology. It's something that we're able to do with little to no disruption to the residents or the businesses that send their sewage to these pipelines. Once the sewer is lined, it's ready for service almost immediately. So it's a methodology that gives a good customer service. Currently, the spending is around $2 million per year. This gets us about 7 miles per year lined. If we continued at this $2 million, it would take us another 16 years to line all of the sanitary sewer that's in the rear yards. Looking at the lining rate that is seen in communities that are adjacent to Westland or similar in size and age to Westland, we had looked at a recommendation of $6 million per year, and this would get you all of your sewers lined within the next 6 years. So I know this is quite a jump from the current spending to the $6 million. There might be something in the middle that would get us to a lined and rehabbed system in the next, say, 6 to 10 years. Like I said, the sewer lining, it helps you to have a sewer system that runs freely. It decreases the likelihood of sewer backups and of failures and collapses. So the next question is, well, how much money does the sewer system have in revenue, and then what are we spending currently? So this slide, what we have shown is the operating expenditure, which includes your payments to Wayne County for your sewage disposal, your equipment and your manpower to operate and maintain and address any of the sewer issues that you have, to do cleaning and televising, to do manhole restructuring. Then you have the non-operating expense, which is your debt payment. And then this green portion is your CIP. This is what we've spent in CIPs, your capital improvement plan projects over the last years. And then this is showing the $6 million investment, which it does show that this would be above and beyond the revenue that is projected to be collected for the sanitary sewer system. As I said, we have created a 6-year CIP sewer system projects with the DPW. They range in area. We tried to cover all of the different sections of the city. If you take a look at the program that will be this summer and next summer, we're hitting basically all 4 quadrants of the city. And this is the total dollar amount. We're spending around that $2 million mark for this next fiscal year. And the sanitary sewer system that Westland contributes to is the Rouge Valley Sanitary Disposal System. This is owned and operated by Wayne County. You're one of 14 communities that contribute sewage to the system or have their sewage collected from the system. The city of Westland is 20% of the flow that goes into the sanitary sewer. So there's quite a bit of information, or quite a bit of sewage that is captured from Westland and contributes to the RVSDS. You are one of the major players in the system. There are proposed upcoming CIP projects that system needs to incur that will be done by RVSDS, but are incorporated in any rate increases that the county passes on to the 14 communities that contribute to this system. So in regards to this summer, or this fiscal year, there are manhole rehabilitation that will take I&I inflow and infiltration out of the system that will then give additional capacity to the system that that was being utilized by rainwater, basically. This agreement was entered into in 2017 between the Wayne County communities and the city of Westland. The long-term plan, they are applying for a state revolving fund, and that fund is going to help with those CIP projects. So the more money that is available through that fund, or that would be forgiven through a loan forgiveness program, would reduce the cost to the city of Westland. That 2017 agreement with the county had an 18% increase built into the first 5 years, and then a 21% increase built into the next 5 years. And that is something that you are currently seeing. The annual payment to the county is around $14 million for sewage disposal right now. The next system that we want to talk about as we move up in the levels is the water network. The water network has about 318 miles of water main, just over 32,000 fire hydrants and 37,000 gate wells. This picture, or this map of your water system, all of the blue is water main that is owned and maintained by the city of Westland. The orange is your distribution mains from GLWA, and then each of these squares are your distribution points from GLWA, so where you're getting water. Your water main material, and your water main age, those kind of go hand in hand. Of a certain age, when we were installing water main in the 50s and 60s, it was cast iron. And then we moved over into ductile iron in the 80s, 90s. We're using HDPE now when we're doing pipe bursting projects. And each one of these has a different lifespan. What we do find is that cast iron breaks much more often. It is older and is reaching its lifespan. So you have 80% of your system is cast iron. The other 20% is some of those other materials that I had mentioned. And most of that cast iron is 63% of that overall system is over 70 years old. So one of the things that OHM has helped with in the past is completed a water asset management plan. And in that plan, we took a look at all of the water mains, the age of the water main, the criticality of the water main, what kind of users it serviced, if it serviced a hospital or a school, and then also the material of the water main, and came up with a condition of those water mains. So we see that almost half of your water mains are low risk. So if you had a water main break, it would affect users, but it wouldn't affect many users, and it wouldn't be necessarily critical users. Your medium risk make up above the other half, and those are ones that are going to affect larger populations, maybe the senior living facilities that you have where you're not easily able to evacuate or provide other sources of water to those residents if necessary. So overall, the system for Westland is a lower risk system than, and that it matches your adjacent communities as well. Another thing that we took a look at in the asset management plan for water is how many water main breaks that have occurred. So if you can see all of the black and red X's, those are all water main breaks. And this is a blow up of the Palmer Road, Westchester Street area. You can see that this section of water main is actually this is Parkwood Bennington, and this has been redone. The other mains within that neighborhood still have the break history, and we're seeing about 111 breaks per year over the last 15 years or so. And those breaks range from, they could be a $4,000 fix to a $10,000 fix. So we're seeing around $500,000 spent on brake repair. And you can see that the newer sections within the city of Westland they just don't have the same amount of brakes as what some of the older sections that have that cast iron material. And these number of brakes, they are average. This is an average for that the age and that type of material. This isn't out of the ordinary for a system this age. The water system replacement tends to be a little bit more expensive than sanitary, especially because most of the time water system replacement, you're either removing or you're pipe bursting the pipe within the same trench that it is currently located, or you are installing all new system in order to maintain the water system for the customers during the construction period. So it does tend to be a little bit more costly. And then the water also ends up being underneath pavement in some of the subdivisions. And when you're within the pavement influence, the pavement also has to get replaced with those projects. We're on average replacing about 3/4 of a mile per year. On average, it costs from $1 million to $2.5 million, depending on the location of the water main and the size of the water main. So taking all of the water main that had 2 or more breaks within the system, you have approximately 60 miles. At the current rate, it would take us another 80 years to replace all of that water main. If we were to jump up to about 3 miles per year, we would be looking at a 20-year capital improvement plan in order to replace that water main. But you certainly are jumping up in cost to a $3 million to a $7.5 million mark if we were to hit that 3 miles per year as an annual replacement cost. Again, so the next step is to take a look and see what does that do to your revenue stream and the operating cost for the system already. So taking a look here, again, your operating expenditure, this is your payments to GLWA, which on average is about $7 million annually. And then all of your laborers, your equipment, your parts, and your energy, your power in order to operate the system, your debt payments, and then the green is the CIP. Those are your project payments every year, the project work every year, the project budgets. And then the orange is the revenue that has been collected from the system, and then the projected revenues in that dashed. So we wanted to give you an overall summary of where your utilities are, your sanitary and your water. This is a summary of those 2 graphs put together. So you've got your water and your sanitary funds. Those are your revenues. And then these are your projected budgets. Currently, the projected budget does outweigh how much is being brought in with the revenues. You are on your 3rd year of a rate study that was done in 2018. And I believe that the finance department will be bringing forward a proposal to come up with to reevaluate and analyze the rates again. And part of that reevaluation will be to take a look and see how much you want to spend in CIP work to rehab and upgrade the systems to keep them functioning. Again, like the sanitary sewer, we have certain neighborhoods that we're targeting for the water with the DPW, the administration there. We've sat down and taken a look at those neighborhoods and come up with a 6-year CIP water system project plan. We are looking at pipe bursting and road reconstruction from Westchester. Again, another pipe bursting project, Scott Road from Worcester to Norma. And then the other component of the 6-year CIP plan is replacements of galvanized water services. This is to be in compliance with the 2018 lead and copper ruling that came about in Michigan. In order to be in compliance with that ruling, we had to file an inventory in 2020 of where we were with the lead and copper and galvanized services. A final inventory of all of the services is due to Eagle by 2025. And then all lead and galvanized services must be removed from the system by the January 1st of 2040. Currently, that 320,000 that we were proposing over that next 19 years would replace the services that we know of right now in the system. We have 39% of the system has been identified. 200 of those services are known to be galvanized. We're replacing those at around 40 services per year in the 6-year CIP. And then on Earth Day, the city of Westland is going to be rolling out a program to engage the public to help identify that other 60% of the services that we aren't sure what they are currently. So there'll be some public information that will be sent out to homes, and then the residents will be able to report back what their services are. And that will help the city gauge better how much money and how many services they'll have to replace between now and that 2040 date. The total number of services within the Westland system is you're just under 30,000 services. One of the initiatives that the Westland City Council and Mayor Wild have taken on is investigating the potential of a water authority with some of your neighboring communities in order to become a larger customer to GLWA. Becoming a part of the water authority could lower your water rates to GLWA and free up some more capital that then could be reinvested in the system. And it would allow you to be a larger voice at the table with GLWA. You'd be a larger customer and what's considered a max day customer, which would allow for a lower revenue requirement rate for the utility authority on a whole. So there would be if the utility authority was to form, there would be initial savings without any additional infrastructure investment. And then there's also been an analysis that would require a storage facility to be built and then a payback period of 3 to 7 years, depending on how large of the facility it is. And that would allow the authority to become a max day customer, which again, that will give us a better rate with GLWA and then just more of a say possibly at the table. So the last layer of our infrastructure is the roads and drainage layer, and Ramsey was going to speak to this section.
Thank you, Jessica. As Jessica said, this is our third layer of our infrastructure, and which includes our roads, road network, and our drainage system or the stormwater system that is contiguous to the road system. Next slide, please. This is the jurisdiction map of the city's road systems. And as you know, we have state roads such as Ford and Michigan Avenue, and we have the county road system, and this is such as Cherry Hill and Middle Belt and Inkster Road. And then we got the city road system, which are in blue. And the city road system are divided into two components. One of them is the local road system, which is like the subdivision or neighborhood streets, and the major road system, which is the collector roads, such as Hicks and Avondale and Marquette and those major streets in the city. And of course, we have the private roads, which are the subdivision streets that are not under the jurisdiction of the city. Next slide, please. The city road network summary, we have about 211 miles of city-owned roads, 139 miles of these roads are concrete and then asphalt, and we have about 7 miles of a gravel road. Next slide, please. We value our roads, or we use like a Pacer system to evaluate the condition of our roads, and this is required by the Michigan Department of Transportation. And we have been using the system for the past, since 2005. Pacer stands for Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating. The rating that we use is between 1 and 10, where 10 is a new construction and 1 is a totally failed pavement. Next slide, please. And this is the map that I believe this goes back to 2019. Because we do that every 2 years. The next one due is 2021, which right now we are in the preparation to complete our rating in the next couple months or so. As you can see from these color-coded ratings, we have about 24 miles of our roads, which we consider totally failed, and about 99 miles, which is the rating 3 to 4, which are poor, and then 75 miles are fair, and so on. And we only have about 9 miles of roads in the city that we consider good roads. Next slide, please. As you can see, the ratings, which are the poor and the failing roads, comprise about 57% of our roads, and 35%, which are the fair roads. From what you can see here, to rehabilitate a deficient road or a totally fair road, it will cost us about $500,000 to $1 million per lane mile. And then the poor roads will cost us, for under heavy rehab about $350,000 per lane mile. And the fair roads and better will cost us between $20,000 to $30,000 per lane mile. And this is where we call the preventative maintenance. We consider it between fair and good. The good roads will cost about $5,000 to $15,000 per lane mile of roads. Next. This beautiful graph here, and which will show you from good, when we built the road brand new, how long it will take to fail completely. And first, like the remaining service life of the road, and then the extended service life of the road. In other words, if we rehab these roads under preventative maintenance, we could gain between 5 to 10 years by spending less money, or like under $100,000 or $150,000 per lane mile sometimes, or $30,000 to $50,000 per lane mile, where we could extend the extended service life of our road system between 5 and 10 years. And we have been using preventative maintenance in the city for the past 5 years, where we have most of our road projects, we do them under preventative maintenance. And as you know, which is more cost effective for our road to maintain them and have them in a safe mode for our vehicular traffic. Next slide, please. And this is like an example of our Pacer rating and how do we do the rating. The deficient Pacer, which is 1 to 2, this is an example at Melton Avenue near Schumann, and at Marquette near John Glenn High School. Next, please. And this is the Pacer rating, which is poor. This is a Newburgh Road near Palmer and Fairchild Road streets near Schumann. Next, please. And this is 5 to 7, which is the fair roads in the city. I mean, this is where we want our streets to be, or our road system to be, in a fair to good, which is between 5 and 10 grading. And this is like at Palmer Street and at Central City Parkway near Warren Road. Next, please. This is the best Basel rating, which is 8 to 10. And as you can see, this is the Boulevard, Central City Parkway near Warren, which we rebuilt, I believe, about 4 years ago, and Palmer Road near Vinoy Road, which we just rebuilt last year. Next, please. We belong, as a city of Westland in Wayne County, we belong with all Wayne County community to the committee. It's called the Federal Aid Committee, where we receive federal funds from the state through the federal government. We receive each year about $16 million of funds. And we have a steering committee, which I am a member of that committee for the past 25 years, that we meet and we select roads to rebuild throughout Wayne County. 75% of the $16 million will go towards county road, and 25% will go towards city streets that are on the federal system. What I mean city streets that are on the federal system, this is such as Newburgh Road and John Hicks Road and Ann Arbor Trail and Palmer Road. So those are city roads that are on the federal system. And again, we have been very successful the past few years by leveraging grants for a total of over $5 million, or close to $6 million worth of projects throughout the city, which, as you can see, like in Newburgh Road at Cherry Hill and Newburgh Road between Ford to Warren, Central City Parkway, and the bridges at Newburgh and Ann Arbor Trail. And last year we did Hicks Road between Ford and Warren. And this year we are doing a Newburgh Road between Cherry Hill to Ford Road. This is about $1.2 million for the federal grant that we should receive. This project should be bid by the state in June and should be constructed this summer. Next, please. This graph will show you the city road network conditions in relationship to our annual funding. I mean, the PASO rating. So the red line is the PASO rating in the city, which is consistent more or less between 4 and 5, which is not fair. It's under, like at 4, and we want it to be over 5. And this is the yellow is our annual spending on road reconstruction, and the blue is our FAC spending, or the grants that we get through the state and the federal government. Next, please. And this is the Act 51 funding, City Roads Network with Act 51 funding, which is the project spending versus the funding, which is the Act 51. Act 51 is the public act by the state of Michigan. And this public act, more or less, they use the gas tax money and car registration money, and that they will redistribute back to the cities through that public act. And that public act usually, the formula that they use is based on population and the lengths or the miles of the streets each city or county has. Next, please. And again, as we have in water and sewer, we have a 6-year CIP for local roads, and we have 6-year CIP for major roads. This is the one for the local roads. And between 2021 and 2027, we are doing major road rehab projects, which most of them are preventative maintenance type of project and some reconstruction. And the neighborhoods, or we call them the NMP neighborhoods or districts, we're doing this year are 14, 18, 28, 34, 35, 37, 42, and 43. And this is all the blue districts that you could see on the map. And Avondale between Vinoy Road and Merriman Road. Next, please. Let's go back to that slide. The total cost of 2021 to 22 is for local road rehab is close to $2 million jobs. Next, please. And these are the districts that we spoke about that we will be redoing this year, which is, you could say neighborhood 14, which is the street limit between South Christine to Wildwood and Palmer to Glenwood. 34 is Pattingill to Lansdowne Drive and Dartmouth to Cherry Hill. Neighborhood 42, south of John Hicks to Barnes and Palmer to Glenwood, and so on and so forth. So we are very, very progressive project year we have planned for this year. Next, please. The 6-year CIP for our major road program. Again, this is the 6th year, which is color coded per year. The green color is the streets that we will be doing this year. And then we are doing like close to 7 roads, major roads this year, which is Yale, Carlson, Superior Parkway, John Hicks and Florence, Grand Traverse Phase 1, and Newburgh Road, which is the state project that we just spoke about. And our local share of this project is $400,000. So we're talking about $1.5 million job that the state would leverage about $1.2 million worth of grants in this beautiful job that we will be doing this summer. Next, please. The city road network, as you can see, the summary is between 2019 and 2015 is very similar. And again, because our roads are deteriorating faster than we could maintain them. And additional funding is, of course, necessary to maintain and improve average road network conditions, which is a rating of over 5. The Transportation Asset Management Plan is due in 2022 to the state of Michigan, which will verify and update our goals for our road network. Again, the city is responsible for the maintenance of about 5 bridges in the city of Westland. These bridges are Ann Arbor Trail over the Middle Rouge, John Hicks over Tonquish Creek, Newburgh Road over Tonquish Creek, Henry Ruff over the Lower River Rouge, and the CSX Railroad at Newburgh Road here, which is the Great Separation. And these roads by the state, by MDOT's regulations and requirements, we have to inspect these bridges biannually. So every 2 years, we have to have an inspection regarding the elements of this bridge, superstructure and substructure, to see if there is any deficiencies. And it is due for this year, I believe 2021, we are due for inspection right now, and we would submit to the state. And anytime we find like any major deficiencies, so it's either we have to limit the loads or the weight limit on that bridge, or we have to do the required repairs. And we have been successful in leveraging some state money. And if you remember in last year's project where we redid the superstructure of Newburgh Road, north of Warren, and Ann Arbor Trail Bridge. And we have about 4 years ago, we redid the pavement and the substructure at Henry Ruff Road over the Lower River Rouge. Next, please. Again, we have been very successful in leveraging some TAP grant, which is Transportation Alternative Grant, to install sidewalk gaps in the city. We have received over $800,000 the past 4 years. And this is with the help of OHM and SEMCOG are the award authority in this. So we did like about 4 projects so far, which is in Newburgh, south of Joy, Marquette in front of the John Glenn High School, Schumann Road from Palmer to Avondale, and Palmer Road from Hamilton to Christine. So these projects have been completed so far. And this year we have a project application to Merriman Road, south of Ann Arbor Trail, to connect to Heinz Drive. And we are working right now with OHM to complete this project app, and hopefully we'll be successful next year to receive a grant for this important project. Next, please. The TAP grant locations, as you can see on the city map, which are very close to schools in the city, and that they are scattered throughout the city. Next, please. This is, again, some pictures of those TAP grant sidewalk gap installation that we have installed the past few years or 4 years. Next, please. The storm sewer network in the city, we have over 306 miles of storm sewer. The majority of it, or 2/3 of it, are city. Then you have the state and county, and we have about 52 miles of private storm sewer network. We have close to 7,000 manholes. 2/3 of them are the city, and 1/3 are private, state and county. Close to 12,000 catch basins, where the city owned about 8,500 of them. Next, please. The storm network rating, where we have like the storm sewer itself, we have very limited surveys or televising these storm sewers. But we have a good manhole structure rating where we inspect through our neighborhood makeover program. And when we do city projects, what we have right now, between, I think, over 75% of our manhole that we could see and inspect and our catch basins are in a fair condition. Next, please. And as you can see, this is the storm sewer network, which is unfunded area. And when we maintain it when we are doing some road projects or through the neighborhood makeover program, where you have seen in the past 4 years, our crews throughout the city, where they inspect the catch basins and the manholes, and usually they vector any debris and inspect these structure for any failures, and then we put them to our contractors for repairs. Next, please. Well, I think I'm done.
Yeah, you did great.
Ready for council questions, and I believe we are on time at 6:49.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I said you had 50 minutes and you hit 48 minutes. So great job to both of you. Okay, at this time we'll open up some council questions if anybody wants to ask a question. All right, first question, Councilwoman Rakowski.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for bringing all this information to us. It's one of those necessary evils where it's not flashy, but if we don't have a good infrastructure, we're going to be in trouble sooner than later. One of the questions that I had was pertaining to how did last year's shutdown of services affect our timeline? And additionally, if the timeline has been affected, was there any budgetary carryover from 2020?
I can answer. Good question, Councilwoman. Last year, as you remember, we have started like a little late, but we started aggressively where we have like multiple projects going on at the same time. We still have a couple of projects that will be starting this year, more or less related to pavement and crack sealing jobs. So we are in the preparation right now to have this project completed before the fiscal year. And the other job that will be completing before or that will start maybe by June is the Ford Road project. And we have, I believe, a Abruzzi Drive that we have from last year that we should be completed this spring or late in the spring. So all in all, our fiscal year, as you know, is from July 1st to June 30th. So we should complete the project from last year by June 30th.
Does that complete your comments, Councilwoman?
It does. Thank you.
All right, great. Next one is Mr. Kovades himself, Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Ramsey and OHM for the presentation. Really appreciate all the work you guys have put into this. I have a number of questions here, so I do apologize. Number one, we know that the American Rescue Plan is rolling out, and I wanted to see, do we have an idea yet if any of that money can be used towards infrastructure dollars, infrastructure repairs, whether it's water and sewer, roads and sidewalks, bridges, anything like that? That's my first question. Number two, we know that, locally, some of our, auto companies, Ford, GM, Chrysler, have committed to deadlines of like 2035, 2040 to roll out an all-electric fleet of vehicles where they're not manufacturing, gas-powered, carbon-based vehicles anymore. And I'm wondering, are we looking to be, forward-thinking on that and putting together an infrastructure, whether it's, charging stations for, electric vehicles or whatever on city property, whether it's at City Hall, I know we've got the one charging station up front there, or at some of our parks. Are we looking at potentially the alternative fuel kind of revolution that's coming from the big three and preparing our infrastructure for that? And then in regards to, two more questions here, in regards to the Capital Improvement Fund, we know that the decision to no longer purchase the garbage trucks and instead go through priority was supposed to pay back the CIP fund. Do we ultimately have a surplus in the CIP or some additional funds from those truck paybacks that we can use towards future infrastructure projects? And then my final question in regards to the water authority that we're forming with other communities. I believe the city of Westland is at the lowest end in terms of cost of the 4 communities in the water authority. If we do end up with this authority, going online between the 4 municipalities, can Westland residents, and we as a community expect, potentially further savings out of that water authority agreement? Thank you.
Mary, you want to take a swing at it?
Yeah, I'll take a swing at it.
Oh, go ahead.
Regarding the last President Biden's plan for the $2 trillion that we should be receiving some money for it. I mean, we haven't read the details yet, but what my understanding is, we could use some of that money for water infrastructure rehabilitation and replacement. I believe either water and sanitary, but we haven't went into the details of that. And then Jessica could help in this too. Regarding the charging stations for electrical vehicles, we started talking about it internally, but there isn't any plan for it yet. And as we go, I believe we should solidify that plan. Regarding the garbage trucks, my understanding is those trucks, or the money that we received from the new contractor, our garbage hauler contractor, should go towards the sanitation funds. And I don't believe we could use them anywhere else but for sanitation. And what's the fourth question?
The fourth question was in regards to the water authority with the 4 communities. We're on the lower end in terms of payment already in that. Would we, whether it's a city or residents, be looking at additional savings joining up with that authority?
Yes, I believe, I mean, there are 2 components to that authority that Jessica spoke about. The first component, if we have formed it and all 4 communities negotiated with the GLWA regarding our max day and our peak hour, we should bring some savings without building any infrastructure or without building any tanks, which is storage tanks. So there will be some savings that the city should receive, or the residents in return, the residents will receive just for forming that authority. And then if we proceeded and we started building like tanks in the city, like 1 or 2 tanks, and this is the big savings that will come. And I believe if we could turn the billing to the city from a peak hour formula to a max day formula by building those tanks, in other words, to use the tanks at peak hour, like during the summer, we'll fill the tanks like in the early hour in the morning, and at the peak hour during the day in July or August, where we shut off the city of Detroit pumpage and we turn our tanks on. This is where we should receive some saving, like major savings. But as you know, to build these tanks, there will be like a seed money, or there will be a cost to the city. It could be close to between $6 and $10 million, dependent on what we own. And from what Jessica said, the return should be in about 6 to 7 years, or 3 to 7 years. So we are in the early investigations of the Rouge of that authority now.
Great, thank you, Ramsey. Nothing further.
You're welcome.
Mayor, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just a couple additional items. Ramsey did a nice job there. On the sanitation, on the sanitation fund, Ramsey's right. The money was paid. Council, you're going to see this when we give you the budget later this week, but the sanitation fund, we originally took the money out of the CIP and loaned it to the sanitation fund to pay it, to pay for the trucks. The money came back to sanitation and went back into CIP. I think I've got that right. So you'll see how that flowed when we give you the proposed budget. As far as car charging stations, council, on your council agenda for the 5th, you're going to see a partnership that Devin's going to bring forward to do a pilot project for 4 car charging stations, 2 at City Hall, 1 at the police department, and I'm sorry, 1 at the library, 1 at the Friendship Center. It's the new generation of chargers. The one that we have in front of City Hall was only a few years old, but it's a couple generations behind. So we'll probably take a look at replacing that with these newer ones. And then as far as the ARP money, there is language in there about infrastructure. So we're going to take a good look at that. And then, you know, tonight's meeting is really timely because it looks like tomorrow the president's going to make a major announcement on his next plans, which are infrastructure, which may be over $3 trillion. So I think the more that we're prepared for infrastructure as the money comes in, the quicker we'll be able put the money into the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions from my colleagues on the council? All right, I just had a couple. Councilman McDermott asked about the American Rescue Plan dollars, so appreciate you answering that. Ramsey, you talked about preventative maintenance, I want to say on page 32. Is that when you're doing like sectioning? Instead of
Yes.
like doing the whole road, just do the sectioning? Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
this is, we do sectioning, or we do like some milling and resurfacing, or jointing, crack sealing, more or less. Like
Okay,
when we
great.
have asphalt, we could either mill it and resurface, and we have concrete where we do like section repair.
Great, great. I see that a lot, and that's good stuff. Obviously, I'm happy to, I don't know if you saw my smile when he talked about Westchester, but I'm very happy about that. I've been on council 4 years, and that's around the block for me. I've been waiting for that one. So he's been promising it for years and said it's in our 5-year plan. So we appreciate that. And then obviously, I'm very happy to see Avondale done as well. For those that are watching the meeting that are attending virtually, we will have a portion for you guys for public comment at the end. So we have, I think I have two more sections to go, and then we'll have a chance for public comment. Okay, good. Okay, Scott, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, great. Yeah, sharing screen, want to make sure that everybody can see things fine.
Yes.
And thank you. And so again, 2 more sections as President Pro Tem mentioned. And the first one will deal with fleet and equipment for the city in 3 different sections. The first will be public services, and then the fire department, and then the police department. We'll take a break there for council questions. So that'll be about 20 minutes and 10 minutes of questions, or however long the questions take. And then we'll come back and talk about the city's facilities. So we'll go ahead with the public services equipment management plan.
Thanks, Scott. This we're going to talk about an overview of the what it requires us to operate and maintain what was discussed for the last hour with our fleet and our equipment. We've established the mission statement for our fleet management plan to provide safe, reliable, economical, and environmentally sound transportation to meet the needs of the city. More importantly, the plan has 4 objectives. We're trying to control the operating and maintenance costs of this equipment, trying to maintain and extend the life of the vehicles as much as possible, control the growth of the fleet, and utilize as many multi-purpose vehicles as possible. We've created policies and criteria to maintain, assign, and schedule the equipment. Our fleet consists of 118 pieces of equipment, approximately half of which are vehicles, and the other half are mowers, our backhoes, our patching machines, trailers with motors and things of that sort. We have a wide variety of different pieces under that category. Next slide. 2 main categories of our plan is preventive maintenance, which I've talked about to avoid the costly repairs and extend the life of the vehicles, and the criteria we use when it's time to replace or recommend replacing. This is broken down into 4 categories: the mileage, and more importantly, in a lot of our equipment, it's the equipment hours, the age of the equipment, the usage. Is it critical? Does it go out every day? Do we only have one? If it's down, what happens? Are we renting or looking for mutual aid? And the maintenance cost. Eventually, it gets to a point where even though a piece of equipment may be in good running order, the maintenance cost will tend to escalate. And ideally, we would be recommending replacement before that piece of equipment goes into failure. Just to give a snapshot of where we were 6 years ago with our fleet and where we're at today. As you can see, in July of 2014, the fleet consisted of 13 two-wheel drive pickups, 11 4x4 pickups, and 1 light dump truck. In the recent years, we've converted that those numbers to more 4x4 pickups, which we are able to utilize in a lot more ways than the 2x4s. Where some of our bigger trailers need a 4x4. We're able to put plows on these in the wintertime. The light dump trucks are kind of a little backbone with a lot of our crews. They might not need a big dump truck, but the lighter, smaller 1-ton dump trucks come in very handy. And then specialty trucks we have, and this consists of our sewer jets, our Vector. We have a vehicle equipped for hydrant maintenance, our camera truck for the sanitary, motor pool trucks, the tree trucks with the booms on them. So I just kind of lump those in just to keep this chart as simple as we could. Next slide. So I should also mention this equipment is funded out of various funds. So a lot of our equipment is able to be purchased out of the water sewer fund. Some of the equipment, which would be the short-term goals, I have a WF under the first 2 items. And the third is the Vermeer chipper, which would be a general fund activity. Short term, we will be recommending replacing our 2010 Vector jet. That is our most expensive piece of equipment that we have and operate. It's a multi-purpose. We use it to clean catch basins. It's the only one we have. We can use it to clean sewers. We use it on occasion for water main breaks. So we'll be looking to replace that. We feel that that's a critical piece coming up. And then our longer term goals would be to continue with the equipment replacement plan that the council and mayor has supported at a projected cost of roughly $500,000. Again, this is coming out of various funds. Some of the smaller equipment we are able to purchase out of our operating funds within our own budgets. The other will be going through the capital improvement fund or the water and sewer equipment capital improvement fund. Some of these longer term goals that we'll be seeking to recommend to replace. We have an 02 Versalift tree truck for the trimming and cutting of trees. We have an 04 street sweeper that is getting close to the end of its service life. This piece of equipment, typically when you buy them new, they'll tell you, depending on your usage, after 7 to 10 years, somewhere in that range, you'll need a major rehab. And then after that, you need to seriously think about just replacing, just because of the usage and what it does and the way the machine is set up to handle the debris. Also would be an 07 10-yard dump truck. The city has been good at replacing our single axles. This would be a tandem axle dump truck. It's time to start looking at those. We have 3 of those that are getting on our radar now to start recommending for replacement. All these so far, these are like $200,000 each items. And then we also have some lesser things, a stump grinder, our loader that we use primarily here in the yard, but also out on the road to collect tree trunks with our tree crew. Those will be some of those items in the future that would be coming forward with a recommendation from our department.
All right, then moving on to the fire department. Chief, are you on?
I am, thank you. All right, so we have Westland Fire Department fleet here. Department maintains a fleet of approximately 20 vehicles. This fleet consists of 6 fire trucks and 7 rescue ambulances. We also have 7 support vehicles that are in the fire administration. All the vehicles are used on a daily basis. and we have an additional specialty vehicle that is maintained for the arson investigations. Basically here we have the engines that provide the pumping for the fire attack, carry the NFPA mandated equipments necessary for performing the emergency services, all of the necessary equipment such as the air tanks, the ladders, EMS supplies, jaws, and various tools and whatnot. The current fleet of fire trucks has an average age of 2007 with approximately an average mileage of 85,000 miles. Each has a life expectancy of approximately 10 to 15 years. The current fleet of rescue ambulances has an average age of 2015. I think you might want to go to the next slide. I think that's referenced there as well. Has an average age of 2015 for the rescue and the ambulances, and a life expectancy of about 4 to 5 years. So the short-term needs for the fire department would be 2 fire trucks. You have 2 fire trucks here that are dated 2003, 2002, and 1 rescue, essentially getting the long-term needs to be 1 rescue every year, and then forecast the fire trucks per their life expectancy of that 10 to 15 year range. You can probably go to the next slide as well. So approximate cost of a fire truck is $575,000 for a fire truck that would be delivered 10 months after the order date. Ladder a little bit more expensive there with the $815,000 post order. Approximate cost for a rescue, $227,000, about 5 months when you order a rescue. Our post frontline trucks, they function as backup reserves for about 4 to 5 years as well. The backup and reserve status essentially means that these vehicles are rotated back into a frontline service as maintenance is performed on the primary truck. So this has to occur in order to allow for a continuous and uninterrupted emergency service. You can go back 1 slide real quick. One of the things I did want to mention regarding some of the mileage and referencing for being backups and how long they can kind of survive is that the idle times on these vehicles can be extended on scene for quite a while. And for every hour that that vehicle idles, industry standard is that it equates to about 25 to 30 miles of driving. So no matter what vehicle you look at, one I've kind of pointed out here in general is that our spare engine 1 has the equivalent of almost 650,000 miles. So they age quite a bit when they sit on scene, and with high call volume, that tends to add up rather fast. Another thing that we try to avoid here is any type of catastrophic failure. So a vehicle catastrophic failure would be a sudden failure of a vehicle's major components during an emergency incident, and such of a failure is not usually attributed to a lack of maintenance. And we have had a couple of these major catastrophic failures in the past few years. You can go to the next slide. This is referencing back to the support vehicles for the administrative side. The current fleet of support vehicles has had an average age of 2014 and approximately 145,000 miles. The short-term needs would be 2 support vehicles to get rid of those highest mileage vehicles. We have 2 that are right around the 200,000 mile range. And the average cost of this support vehicle is $33,000. Keeping up with that maintenance would be 2 support vehicles per year for the next 3 years to kind of get through them all. The last significant purchases of kind of encompassing the entire fleet was in 2018. There was a fire truck purchase for $791,000. $111,000 was put down and financed the remaining $680,000. The last rescue ambulance purchase was in 2020 at a cost of $215,000, and the necessary equipment to outfit that vehicle was an additional $75,000, bringing the total for that vehicle up to $290,000. And I think that's it for my slides.
All right, thank you, Chief. We'll move on to the police department next. And for this, there was a memo that was distributed to council on Friday of last week. Police Chief will reference that. Here's just a few summary points there of some of the information that was included in. Chief, go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. So council, the Westland Police Department, we maintain a current fleet of 50 vehicles. The fleet consists of 30 marked uniform patrol vehicles and 20 unmarked undercover detective bureau vehicles. These vehicles are used on a daily basis. In addition to those, we maintain a number of specialty vehicles that are only used on a semi-regular basis. This would include our 3 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, 2 SWAT vehicles, and a work program van. Marked patrol vehicles are utilized by patrol officers, the traffic bureau officers, the community police officers, the commercial motor vehicle enforcement officers, school resource officers, selective enforcement, and the alcohol enforcement officers while they're in uniform. The unmarked vehicles are utilized mostly by plainclothes or undercover personnel for detective work, case follow-up, undercover special investigations, undercover drug buys, plainclothes surveillance, case follow-up, court, or training. The usage of the marked patrol vehicles average approximately 25,000 miles per year, so a life expectancy of about 5 years per vehicle. The unmarked vehicles would average about 15,000 miles per year with a life expectancy of about 8 years. Our specialty vehicles have lower miles, so we have a much longer life expectancy, and we try to get 15 to 20 years out of those special use vehicles. Typical purchase cost, the cost of a fully marked patrol vehicle, including the equipment and the outfitting, is about $55,000 with the state bid pricing. The cost of an unmarked vehicle is about $27,000 with the state bid pricing. Our typical return revenue on a resale, a vehicle is typically removed from service after about 6 to 8 years when it hits about 120,000 miles. We've been selling those through insurance auto auction, and we get a return of about $3,500 to about $4,000 per car. Our current status, the last significant purchase of unmarked undercover investigative vehicles was back in 2013. Over the past 5 years, we've only purchased 3 marked patrol vehicles. The current fleet of patrol vehicles has an average age of 2016 and about 90,000 miles per vehicle. The current fleet of unmarked undercover vehicles has an average age of 2015 and about 85,000 miles. So if you look at the charts there, the breakdown is the low mileage pie piece is anything less than 40,000 miles. Medium mileage is 40 to 80,000, and then the high mileage is anything greater than 80,000 miles. The current fleet of our specialty vehicles are older. They have very low miles due to their limited use. I wanted to touch a little bit on vehicle maintenance and repair costs. Over the past 5 years, there's been a steady increase of expenditures from the police vehicle maintenance and repair account every year since 2018. Currently in this budget year, we've already got a 23.9% increase with 3 full months until the end of the fiscal year. In comparison to our largest budget year of 2018, we spent $164,000 that year. To date, we are already over $14,000 of the total expenses in that same time frame of 2018. If our repair maintenance continues at the same trend that it did in 2018, the next 3 months we could spend as much as $60,000 on repair maintenance, bringing that to about $177,000 for our budget year. Over the last year, the economy has faced many challenges. There's been an increase in pricing in all areas due to lack of parts, workforce, and the surge of safety protocols. If most projections are correct, this would mean that from 2015, the fees associated with vehicle maintenance will have increased by 56.2%. So my fleet strategy for the police department, the most effective way to maintain a cost-effective fleet is to rotate new vehicles in while selling off the older vehicles before they accrue the costly repairs and lose their resale value. My goal is to maintain an overall fleet with 31% of the vehicles with higher mileage, 31% of the vehicles with medium level mileage, and 31% of the vehicles with low mileage, and then 7% of the fleet being our specialty vehicles, which would have just an unlimited amount because they'd be a long-term investment for us. The pie chart there kind of shows what our ideal fleet configuration would be. Is with a consistent replacement plan in place, we will avoid paying costly repairs on things such as the engines, the suspensions, and the transmissions. My plan would be a commitment of purchasing 3 marked uniform patrol cars and 1 unmarked undercover investigative vehicle every year. I can accomplish this strategy with a purchasing pattern, which would allow me to rotate the fleet, utilize the factory warranties, avoid those high cost repairs, improve the resale value of the cars that we are flipping over. In addition, with a more reliable fleet, we will have fewer cars that are out of service for repair. Currently, we average about 3 vehicles on any given day that are out for service repairs. With a more reliable fleet, I'm able to eventually lower the number of cars that we maintain in our fleet because there'll be less of a need to maintain backup cars. The only way to immediately meet the ideal fleet configuration would be the purchase of 7 marked cars and 6 unmarked. I understand that may just be unrealistic, but it kind of shows the importance of us maintaining a structured repurchase plan and sticking to it for every year to come. And that's all I got. So thank you.
All right, I think that brings us to the questions portion, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Chief and Doug. First council question is from Councilman Mcdermott.
Well, good evening to both the chiefs. Thank you for your presentations here. My first question is to Chief Jedrzejczyk. In regards to the replacement of, I know we're switching from, and we've talked about this before, switching from the Taurus to the Explorer. Where are we at with the fleet in switching out our Taurus fleet for the Explorer fleet? And then my second question is for Chief Morris. In regards to engines 3 and 4 being out, how big of an issue or crisis point would you say that is for the department and for our firefighters with 2 of those engines being inoperable? Thank you.
I think the first question was me, so I'll start if that's okay. In regards to the switching over from Tauruses to Explorers, so ideally, the Explorer is a much more convenient vehicle to use in police work. I mean, the reality is once you put all the equipment inside of a police car, when you have your shotguns, your rifles, your computer, there really is very little space for a person in the passenger seat. With a young department, we have many officers that are in field training programs. We run 2-man cars. So we found that most officers are larger than the average person, and trying to fit a person in that passenger seat just never really worked. So as a department, we favored the SUV style vehicle because it was larger. And then in cost comparison, it was really only about $3,000 more from the Taurus up to the Explorer police package. It came with an all-wheel drive. So we're continuing to use the Tauruses that we have in service, but my plan moving forward is just to continue to purchase the Explorers over the Taurus.
Chief Morris?
Yes, so engine 4 was out of service on 317. It did have a fire behind the panel there. It was isolated and wasn't as bad as we initially thought. So engine 4 is being repaired. We'll be back in service shortly. In regards to engine 3, that one still is in service. As far as I'm aware, it is one of our older engines. That one in particular is a 2002. So, 140,000 miles with almost 10,000 hours. You do the math on that, and that's equating quite a bit of hours, but it is in poor condition. The maintenance in 2019, 2020 was almost $50,000 just for that vehicle alone. So that's going to add up quickly. And to date for this year, we're at 25,000. But unless there's some other information that you want regarding engine 3, I don't believe that one has been out of service any time recently. But I know engine 4 did have an issue.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Nothing further.
Okay, great. Councilman Murkowski.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Chief Jedrzejczyk and Chief Morris. It's interesting how many vehicles that we actually do have in our fleets, through all of the different service areas. My first question is, I'm going to go in order with hitting fire first. Chief Morris, how much have we spent on repair costs this year? I know that both the police and fire departments are over budget. Could you give us an idea of what that amount is?
Sure, I have a tally here for 2019. Let's see, I have to pull it up 1 second. I know that we're going to be talking over $200,000. Let's go back 1 second. Yeah, the budget for that was 225,000. And yeah, we do routinely go over that. Each vehicle as it ages does get more expensive to maintain.
Sure. Okay. You know, to me, when we start getting to a place where we're spending more on either of our fire engine apparatus or our police apparatus than it would cost to, you know, be financing a new one, it's kind of one of those, it's time. Looking at both of the fleets, it's time. Chief Dudruzek had a plan of bringing in 3 vehicles, but he said that ultimately he should have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, 7 marked and 6 unmarked would be optimal.
So I guess what I was saying there is that would get me to the ideal configuration. I mean, for me to expect us to go there overnight is probably unrealistic.
Sure.
But in a perfect world, you know, if we stay on a consistent purchase plan, I would get to that ideal configuration.
Okay. And then Chief Morris, do you have a similar outlook, or is the 2 fire engines or the engine and quint and 1 rescue in the short term sufficient, or is there a little bit broader need there as well? You're muted, sir.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm new to this. No, that essentially would get us start moving in the right direction.
Okay.
So yeah, that's obviously we have 2 more engines that are old as well, 2003s.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess pie in the sky would be 4 engines, but how realistic is that? So
Well, we don't know what we don't know, and you know, like, we drive our own vehicles, which are nowhere near what police and fire and even DPS equipment is, right? So we might drive a 10-year-old car, but we can't necessarily render service in a 10-year-old vehicle all the time. Sorry, I have a few more questions. Could you give me an idea of how much revenue our rescues have brought in this year or this past year?
I don't have that information on me right now.
Okay. Would you mind?
I could get that to you though.
I would appreciate it. And then with the is there talk or consideration of outfitting our engine and quint with ALS equipment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We do have plans to go in that direction.
Okay.
There's obviously some hurdles that have to be addressed regarding the city and the union and things like that.
Okay.
But the motivation is there and the equipment is being planned out, and there's definitely an incentive to go in that direction for sure.
Yeah, in the interim, it may be a little bit of a cost savings to add the ALS equipment to our engines and quint and maintain the level of service that our city has an expectation. And I know the firefighters have the expectation of rendering when our when our rescues are out servicing other individuals, if at least somebody can respond and we have that higher level of equipment. I think that would be fantastic. So appreciate it. Thank you. That answers my questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the council?
Council President Pro Tem.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
To the councilwoman's question to the chief as far as EMS revenue, when we submit the proposed budget to council later this week, as part of the forecast that comes with it, you'll see it'll have our revenue, I think at the end of the 3rd quarter. It'll have the date in it. So Chief, that information is kind of going to be going to council on Thursday already. So if you need help pulling that up, Councilwoman, just let me know. But I think that'll give you the data that you're asking for.
Excellent, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mayor. Any other questions from the council members? Can't see their hands, so just give me a second to scroll down here. Councilman Gabout, you good? Councilman.
Yeah, I'm all
Okay.
set.
And Councilwoman Green, are you all set?
Yes, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just briefly, I'll just ask, I appreciate my colleagues asking the questions about our public safety fleet. I guess this one's to Doug, the Vector jet replacement. Will we keep the other one as some kind of backup, or will we sell it? And what, if so, what will be the return or the sale price or roundabout sale price?
Right now, the estimated cost of a brand new one to replace our current one is $500,000. One of the reasons we're looking to replace it soon is there's still some trade-in value for our current one, and we're working with the vendor negotiating that price now.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there's no more questions on our fleet, I'll thank both chiefs and Doug and the entire DPS department. I think we'll move on to the facilities assessment. Scott?
All right, great. Thank you so much. So this is the last leg of the presentations this evening, and dealing with facilities. In addition to your facilities director, Vic Berra, we have George Taylor, who will also handle some of the presentation. He is a senior business consultant with SiteLogic and is responsible for the development and delivery of infrastructure and energy solutions for municipalities, higher education, K-12, and healthcare clients throughout the state of Michigan. So I believe that Vic, you're going to be the initial presenter, so please proceed.
Thank you, Scott. Greeting, council. I'd like to warn you up front that for George and I, there's just nothing quite as exciting as talking about heating, cooling, and ventilation systems, and of course, saving money. So if we get too excited, feel free to rein us in. The process began in March of 2019, shortly after I came on board with the city to find an organization capable of providing a detailed energy profile and opportunity analysis through all of our city's facilities. The initial approach was geared toward identifying energy efficiencies and ultimately savings throughout the city's buildings. And to that end, George and his team proposed an in-depth review of all mechanical subsystems at each building. They compiled a detailed list of observations, summarized that significant energy savings could be accomplished through capital improvements and investments, resulting in a nearly 25% reduction in our energy consumption and by extension, our carbon footprint. Next slide, please. In January of 2020, the city issued an RFQ for energy evaluation services. The team from SiteLogic and George expressed interest in the project and was selected by the city. City Council approved a master facility planning and optimization agreement with SiteLogic in July of 2020. Under that agreement, SiteLogic was to provide a deeper dive into the state of our mechanical systems. Through discussions, additional goals between George and I and expectations were mutually agreed upon and established regarding the depth of the evaluation process, information to be shared, and the development of a more flexible evaluation tool, for which we briefly discussed in this presentation. Next slide, Scott. Establish a data-driven ranking methodology to prioritize needs based on specific criteria. From my old days at Ford Motor Company, these top priorities also apply here in the city. Safety being top priority for all of what we do. Looking at equipment life cycles and the age of our equipment, energy and operational savings, cost benefit analysis, and of course, return on your investment. Long-range goals to provide a flexible tool capable of supporting and maintaining a strategic 5-year plan as we progress. Next slide, Scott.
Thanks, Vic. I'll pick it up from here. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you today. Like Vic said, we got engaged with the city, and when we look at engaging our clients, we look at leveraging this report card, which is called our Asset Condition Assessment Report. We use this report card to assess all up to 500,000 square feet of your facilities throughout 16 buildings. And as you can see here, we grade each piece of asset, giving it a grading from alarm, again, which is things that are beyond its life expectancy or its useful life, up to the positive, which is an excellent, based on what we saw when we walked through each and every building and looked at each and every asset. Again, this condition assessment report is very detailed and quite frankly allowed us to establish a baseline for the city's assets, which is ultimately allowing your facilities director, Vic, to put together a 5-year strategic plan. Next slide, please. Once we capture all that data, like Vic said, it's we're kind of nerdy in this regard. This is the tool that he referenced as it relates to where that information goes and the ability to score and rank the data once we've captured it. What you see here before you is a sample cut from the facility tool. And what we did as a result of dialogue back and forth was customize the tool so that specific to Westland in order to capture the data for all the facility infrastructure needs. Again, this is a quick snapshot. If you can imagine, each one of the assets in all your facilities were, again, scored, ranked accordingly with that red, yellow, green assessment. And if you look across the top of the tool, you can see the categories from equipment age and life expectancy to asset condition. We actually then come up with recommendations for each one of those assets that have reached their life expectancy. We look at ASHRAE standards with regards to the useful life and the remaining life, which gives us the ranking necessary for Vic and the director to make a decision. And then in an effort to keep with our return on investment analysis, we also apply utility, operational and maintenance savings along with any rebates that would be available because we work with the local utility company to drive those rebates. Next slide, please. This slide just is a quick representation for each one of your facilities. This is really an output of the tool that I referenced in the previous slide, allowing you from a city perspective to see where your buildings rank from what we would consider your most challenged buildings to the facilities that are in the best condition. Again, specific to your mechanical, electrical, lighting infrastructure only. So just to give you a quick snapshot of your conditions of the facilities at a glance. Next slide, please.
Thanks, George. In addition to being able to individually rank each location by its current condition, the matrix tool allows us to estimate the financial impacts of the recommended upgrades. When looking at the data from this perspective, in this slide, you can see the value of this approach as I formulate my department's 5-year plan. Next slide, please. Again, as it relates to the output of the tool, as you saw in the previous slides, the facilities that bubbled up to the top as it relates to highest priority needs was the police department from an infrastructure standpoint and Jefferson Barnes from an infrastructure standpoint. Again, these two are the two facilities that we would like to target for years 1 and 2 of the 5-year strategic plan. The financial investment associated with the total of both of these facilities would be in the range of approximately $2.9 million with an annual savings, energy savings impact to the tune of approximately $40,000 a year. Now that number seems a little low because what you have here is facilities that have a significant amount of mechanical infrastructure needs that don't necessarily drive a tremendous amount of savings, but from a prioritization standpoint, they're critical in nature in order to maintain good use of the facility and not have any failure with regards to being able to keep the occupants with some level of comfort in each one of the facilities. Next slide, please. Again, in keeping with the City of Westland's Mission Green initiative, what we wanted to do also is represent for you the environmental impact of the improvements that would be made just to these two facilities. Now, again, you can take this information and it's exponential across the entire footprint of the city facilities, but in just these two facilities, we're talking about an impact to the tune of 400 metric tons of carbon footprint reduction.
on an annual basis. And again, that's for us anal folks out here who feed on this stuff. I'd like to ultimately bring it down to some equivalencies that may be more relevant. So as you can see across the bottom there, those are the equivalencies that are represented. 44,000 gallons of gas consumed on an annual basis, savings up to 915,000 barrels of oil consumed on a regular basis. We're talking about enough impact to generate energy use for about 45 homes. And then the other one for trash bags from recycle, we save about 16,000 trash bags that would basically be diverted from your landfill. So a pretty significant impact in just 2 facilities, understanding that if we have this information across all the facilities as City Council may want to hear at the time, at its recommended time. Next slide, please.
Okay, in closing, I'd like to remind council that the data presented today is just a snapshot of our mechanical, electrical, and lighting needs only. Moving forward, I will be adding additional needs to this tool to include items such as parking lot and sidewalk needs, facade restorations, and maintenance, external lighting, etc. I would be more than happy to meet with council members individually or collectively to discuss in greater detail specific project recommendations as we move forward. Feel free to reach out to myself. George and I can meet together with council in any format that you choose as we start to target specific projects for improvement. And with that, I'm done. Thanks.
Wow, Vic Barra got through in less than 10 minutes. How about a round of applause for that? Thank you, Vic, and thank you, George. Great presentation. First hand I see raised, I believe, is Councilwoman Green.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who presented information tonight. This was a phenomenal, informative presentation. My question is, can you turn back? It looks like the slide is on page 74. Can you go back to page 70, please? Okay, so it looks like from just the actual what's reflected on this page, it looks like the police department and fire station number 3 has a larger section of alarm area, which are the most the items that are in most dire need. And so on page, I believe it is 72, the police department and Jefferson Barnes have been, were discussed as the priority for years 1 and 2. And my question is, since Jefferson Barnes has a larger portion of their facility that is not as in dire need as Fire Station 3, why would we not make Fire Station 3 the priority with the police department in years 1 and 2 and push Jefferson Barnes back?
That's an excellent question, Councilwoman. I'll take a swing at that. Scott, if you could flip to, I believe, the next slide, 71. Okay, as you take a look at the dollar amounts, I think the snapshot, and of course, we can provide many different snapshots, Councilwoman. We could provide you a snapshot in detail with regard to the life cycle of the equipment. And if we did that, that pie chart would shift based on that data set for life cycle analysis. I believe the at a glance slide that we presented in this, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, was directed to the financial impact. Even though you see in the color chart some greater alarm, if you look at Fire Station 3, down in this financial chart here, you'll see that of course, this is kind of blocked here, but when you look at the dollars associated with that pie chart, it's significantly less than what the capital improvement needs for the police station in Jefferson Barnes would need. In addition, we take into account the age of the police station being a 1967 construction. And of course, Jefferson Barnes, as we all know, was built in 1942. So a lot of the mechanical systems in those two locations are quite dated. And when we use our weighting tool within our program, it quickly raises the eyebrow at the true age of some of this equipment. And the bottom line is, you're going to pay me now or you're going to pay me later on some of these things. And some of these systems are very expensive because of the size of the buildings. Whereas Fire Station 3 could have some areas where it has a high alert level, but the dollars associated with repairing that particular facility is significantly less. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Vic. It does. You know, but with the fire station or the fire department as a whole being one of the departments that are in the position to save, one of the few departments in our city that are in a position to save lives, and it could ultimately, you know, their ability to respond appropriately and have the resources that they need intact. And with the amount for the repair being under $9,000,
Right.
I hope that there is consideration in terms of priority. If Jefferson Barnes looks like their amount exceeds 200, almost roughly $230,000, I would hope that there is some priority for a $9,000 roughly expenditure to just go ahead and square up Fire Station 3. I would hate to see our police or fire have to go without while we're prioritizing buildings that are not necessarily in one of the life-saving departments in our city. But thank you very much for that explanation.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I couldn't agree with you more. Ultimately, the way we laid this slide out is, of course, you can kind of see a 5-year plan in reverse, actually. With the green category, low range priority would be the 5th year of our strategic plan. And of course, the immediate priority on the right would be our 1st year priority in our strategic plan. So ultimately, I would like to, if resources are available, look at taking on year 1 at 1.144 million citywide and knocking down all of those alarming items. And if possible, funds available, add on to the 2nd year of our plan and taking a real bite out of our problems, being a total of 3,399,000. But of course, those are decisions left up to council and of course the administration. We just want to provide all of the methodology to assist you in making those choices moving forward.
Thank you.
All set, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Next up, we got Councilman McDermott.
Good evening, Vic. Thank you. And good evening, George. Thank you both for the informative presentation here. A couple of quick questions. In recent years, and I think we can probably expect this again, given the change in administrations from the federal government perspective, there have been some grant dollars available for renewable energy resources. Have we looked into, whether it's with our grant writer with Nasserini Strategies or just on an individual level, have we looked at kind of a cost benefit analysis of potentially putting some renewable energy like solar panels or something like that on any of our city buildings or facilities as a potential long-term cost-saving measure, and also as a part of our Mission Green program to lower our carbon footprint as a city? And then another question I had in regards to the Norway fire station, obviously we're not using that at this point in time, but from a facilities perspective, if we were to bring that station back online, has that been inspected lately? And are we at a point where that could be operational if we decided that we wanted to, roll that back in our fleet of stations again? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. In terms of grant dollars, I am looking into federal programs, working with Congresswoman Tlaib's office. She's putting out a lot of information, presenting some opportunities there, and we're certainly looking into that. In terms of cost benefit analysis, absolutely. I mean, we're looking for a return on investment, as we noted earlier. What is it going to cost us in today's dollars versus what it's going to cost us in future dollars? And of course, keeping in mind that everything costs money. As far as the Norway fire station goes, I got to tell you, that building is in really poor shape. The roof is in terrible shape. It leaks profusely throughout the building. The building itself is very dated. The fire department kind of decommissioned that building and turned it into a storage location and a repair location where they work on some of the units that need maintenance when they're taken out of service and a backup unit is put in its place. So it's become kind of a repair hub for the fire department. And I don't anticipate that firehouse coming back online. But then again, I don't make those decisions. That would be geared from the fire chief and the administration to decide that. If that was the need, obviously I'd do a deep dive into looking at what it would cost to rejuvenate it and get it back up and running.
Thank you, Vic. Appreciate it. Nothing further.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilman Godbout.
Thanks, and thanks everyone for the presentations this evening. Everyone did a great job going through the material. The question I have is in regards to the police station. Over the past several years, we've spent a not an insignificant amount of dollars at the at the police station, bringing it up and fixing. I remember there was tuck work that had to be done. There was facilities stuff that was being done. And I know it was in phases, but I don't recall $2.5 million for, in essence, the HVAC system after we did all of the other renovations. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my recollection. And I'd have to go back through my notes to find out and look at the overall plan that was put together. I want to say it was 5 to 7 years ago when we started the rehab of the police station.
Well, moving forward, Councilman, we're certainly going to take a look at that. This recommendation was made by SiteLogic with their estimation of the dollar needs. I know there's some controls issues with regard to the hodgepodge assembly of that building, as you referenced. It's been piecemealed together. This last year, we spent probably $40,000 of maintenance dollars just on heating and cooling. There were areas of the building that had no heat at all in the wintertime, and other areas of the building that had no cooling during the summertime, and our officers were quite uncomfortable. So we did a lot with the dollars that we had, maintenance dollars. But at the end of the day, these large mechanical systems, and you're familiar with some of them, to put in a centralized system that would maintain the entire environmental conditions of the police department is where I think these numbers are coming from. Yeah, it's pricey, but ultimately it's going to give you 20 years of good quality comfort life for the police department and their officers. And it's also going to give you the energy management controls to reduce your carbon footprint and maintain savings on electrical dollars. Right now, this equipment literally runs full tilt. Some of the pieces of equipment, they're wasting dollars and they're also wearing themselves out in the process. So in all regards, sir, we're in pretty bad shape there. I'm not sure who did the evaluation 5 or 6 years ago.
I believe it was done by Plant Moran Cressa back when we started the rehab of the building. And I don't recall, we've spent a couple $1 million on that building already. And like I said, I don't recall $2.5 million to redo the mechanicals for that building. So I'll go back and see what I can find. I'd appreciate maybe Plant Moran people, because I thought it was Plant Moran that actually put together that study and cost estimates for what we did or what needed to be done to bring that facility up to modern standards. So,
okay. Well, that was before my time, Councilman, and I will look for that study, and I'd like to sit down with you and go through that at a later date. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Vic.
What's that, Councilman Gabbo?
That's it, thanks.
All right, great. Thank you. Councilwoman Rutkowski.
Thank you, Director Barra and George, for sharing all of this information with us. It's a little distressing to see that some of our buildings need so much love, but it's good that we have a plan. The first question I have is, when we look at high priority, so we look at our orange category, and I know there's not going to be a finite answer, but how soon can we expect that to become an immediate priority? And are those things just on the crest of failing, or if you could give us an idea on that? And then secondly, my comment would just be, I would be in favor of addressing as much as we can in our immediate priority zone and our high priority zone if possible, possibly with some of these new infrastructure dollars that should be coming from the federal government before we have even more expenses in that immediate priority zone.
Thank you for that question, Councilwoman. There is another category within this matrix tool that we actually didn't need to use for this presentation, and it's called a danger category. And George, if you'd like to kind of share that, I think what it basically says is in danger of immediate failure. And we did not find through the analysis that we are on the edge of the cliff, so to speak. But looking at all the other metrics in terms of life cycle, some of this equipment is double past its life cycle. If you had a 25-year expected life cycle for a heating and cooling system, and it's presently at 45 years old, you're going to find yourself in a high category for replacement. And that's where a lot of these priorities come from. But George, if you'd like to expand on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Councilwoman, it'd be a little challenging to give you the specific timing associated with it, but much to Vic's point, when we went through and looked at the high priority, which in essence is an alert status for us, that what an alert being that it's about to fail, and because we looked at each asset individually. That's what's driving that chart in order for us to be able to give you that picture of what's about to fail and what basically has failed or is past its useful life, which is the alarm category. So again, it's to say when it would fail. I'll throw Vic and his team some kudos to say that they've done a good job in maintaining the facilities based on age of the equipment. And that's really the driver. A lot of the driver in those two categories is age and against useful life. We use things like ASHRAE standard guidelines in order to give us the at least the baseline. But we go beyond that by actually, like I like to say, we look up under the hood. So these aren't situations where we just kind of did a thumbnail approach. We literally walked off all your facilities, looked at the pieces of equipment. That matrix tool that I showed you, the reason we had to give you snippets is because it's like 60 tabs. It has so much data, but it's a powerful tool that quite frankly gives you the information, you and the director, the information necessary in order to say, yep, we feel comfortable that these are your highest priorities. These are the things that really should be addressed from an immediacy standpoint. And then here's how you can establish your 1 to 5 year plan with regards to getting things done. So I know that was a long answer to say I sort of can give you an answer, but hopefully that helped give you some comfort.
I appreciate that. I didn't have the expectation of there being a finite answer. I just didn't know if if we were on the crux of, being in a very challenging position. And then my final question is just going to be, so this was on our energy evaluation. So that's heating and cooling. Did it also take into consideration electrical?
Absolutely, Councilwoman. George, take it away on that one. You
I
know
was-
all the categories that you guys looked at. So why don't you take a swing at that?
Absolutely. It was definitely, thanks, Vic. Again, that's the excitement of the nerdiness of infrastructure. Absolutely. The HVAC, lighting, electrical, every aspect from an infrastructure standpoint, controls, how the building is being controlled. And quite frankly, and I forgot which council member asked, I apologize about the idea of renewable. We definitely are capable to look into that, to provide you some feedback, but much like Vic said, your return on investment, the local utilities haven't made it that exciting for cities and municipalities to convert. I think they're trying to figure out how they can capitalize on it first, and then they'll let others capitalize on it. But at the end of the day, there is opportunity to potentially do some potential pilots, and with the monies that are coming from our president, with regards to the funding for infrastructure, and there's a big push from the former governor of the state as she sits in her role as the Secretary of Energy. There may be some additional incentives that come as a result of that too. So as an organization and working with you and Director Vic, we definitely can look at some of those things for future consideration.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or closing comments from any of my colleagues on the council before we go to citizens' comments? Councilwoman Rakowski, you still got your hand up. Did you have anything else? I don't know how to lower hands yet. I'm still new to this being host thing. So, okay, if there's no other comments, I'll just briefly comment and just say thank you to all the presenters. I want to thank Scott from Plant Moran for being our facilitator once again, and hopefully taking it easy on me from running the meeting. Thank you to the mayor, to Ramsey, to Jessica from OHM, and also her colleagues from OHM, Doug Morton, Chief Morris, Chief Judge Ruzick, Vic Bear, and George Taylor. That was some incredible information, and I'd encourage my colleagues to continue to reach out to these directors and ask questions. Listening to the back and forth just now between George and Vic and my colleagues, I want to come in now and see some of this stuff and flip through 60 tabs. I get into that stuff. I like to see all the data I can see. So I appreciate everybody's time. So we'll move on to citizens' comments. Any citizens that wish to speak, our normal protocol for public comment will be adhered to. So if you wish to speak for public comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom app, or you can press *9. Anyone in the attendee area wishing to speak? Last call, final call. Anyone in the attendee area wishing to speak? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and let Mayor Wild close us out, and thank you all for your time tonight. Mayor?
All right, well, thank you, Council President Pro Tem. Nice job tonight, moving us through the meeting, and thank you to all of our presenters and City Council. Great questions. As you see, the folks that were part of the presentation tonight have spent a lot of time on this, and we're trying to get as much information together so that collectively we can, use the resources that we have to try to tackle as many of these issues that we talked about tonight and some of the other sessions as well. So the good news is it does look like we're going to have some additional resources coming. So the timing of everything is very good. So whether it be through the ARP or potential infrastructure, more federal infrastructure dollars, I think our timing is right. So with that, we look forward to seeing everybody at our next session. We're going to work on getting council the budget by Thursday, the proposed budget, and then we'll have to try to figure out how we squeeze in the next workshop through the budget process as well. So thanks, Council President and council members.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.